Week 2.
Okay. Jesus one, Prevocational, am I right?
Yes. No. Let me see it. Say week 2. No,
It's not this one.
it's not this one.
Okay, just
Happened at week 2.
Jesus one.
Yes.
Okay, let's start.
All right. Yes. Oh. All right. Good morning, students. How are you this morning? Sorry for coming behind schedule. Wow. I'm sure we're all good to go now. Before we proceed into today's topic, can someone type in our last topic, the topic we treated the last time online? If you are here, let me see you. Let me count. Someone remind us of our last topic. Okay, good morning, Farouk. Good morning, Abdurrahman Shehu. Nice to see you people here. Okay, Ramat Lasisi, good morning. How are you doing? Now, can someone remind us of our last topic, rather? I'm waiting. You can easily type it in here. Very good. Jude Isibo, classification of crops. Well, that's not all. Based on what? We have classification of crops based on lifespan. We have classification of crops based on uses. We have classification of crops based on the number of cotyledons. So which one was treated? I'm not Ramat Lasisi. Then who are you? Based on uses. Very good. The last topic was classification of crops based on uses. And that very day we talked about food crops, under which we have the cereals, the legumes, the vegetables. And for vegetables, we have 3 classes of vegetables, which are the leafy vegetables, we have the fruit vegetables, and we have the root vegetables. And apart from that, we also treated tuber crops. I gave you examples of tuber crops. We have stem tubers and we have root tubers. We also talked about forages, which are plant materials that are given as feed or food to livestock. We talked about fiber crops, e.g. cotton, jute, scissor, and hemp. We also talked about fruits under food crops. We have a series of examples of fruits, such as the oranges, the water lemon, mango, pawpaw, and so on and so forth. Very good. For today, we are looking at another topic, and the topic is weeds. Weeds. At the end of this lesson, there are objectives I want you to achieve. The first one is you should be able to define weeds. Then you should at least be able to give 3 examples of weeds. Beneficial and harmful effects of weeds on crops and livestock. Weeds are not only harmful, they are also of beneficial effect to human beings, to crops, and to livestock. You should know some of these effects on crops and on livestock. And the last objective is uses of weeds. The picture here is a typical example of weeds. What are weeds? In short form, weeds are defined as unwanted plants. They are plants that grow where they are not wanted. Man do not plant them, but they grow as a result of their seed being on the soil, or the other portion of plants found on the soil. Once the weather condition is favorable and other conditions are favorable to the seed in the soil, they will begin to germinate. So any plant you find in your farm that you did not plant is referred to as weed. For example, if you have a maize plant and on your maize plant you find rice growing, you did not plant the rice, rice can be classified as an example of weed on your maize farm. If you have a cassava farm and there is maize growing, that maize is referred to as weed because you didn't plant it. So weeds are unwanted plants, or plants that grow where they are not wanted, or that grow where they are not planted. Weeds compete with our crop for so many things. They compete with crops for space, they compete with crops for soil nutrients, they compete with our crops for sunlight, for water, and also soil air. Weeds on your crops will make your crops not to grow very well. They reduce the yield of crops and they also affect the quality of crops on the farm. Characteristics of weeds, features of weeds. The first point is that weeds have the ability to withstand trampling by man and animals. When you step on plants, on weeds rather, either you as human or farm animals step on grasses or on weeds while grazing, after a few minutes, you see that those weeds, they'll stand erect again. They have the ability to withstand trampling. No matter the level of trampling, after a certain period of time, they stand erect again. Then some weeds grow very fast. They have the ability to grow faster than the original plants. They grow very fast. Once the seed are in the soil and the conditions are favorable unto them, you see them sprouting, germinating, and they grow very fast. They compete with your crops for soil fertility, for soil water, for space, and for sunlight. Number 3 point is that weeds have the ability to remain in the ground throughout the year. I've mentioned of conditions being favorable to them. If the seeds of wheat are in the soil and the weather is not favorable unto them, they have the ability to remain in the soil throughout the whole year. They won't die. They will remain in the soil and wait for the period of the year when there will be rainfall or the other conditions will be available and favorable unto them so that they can germinate. They have the ability to remain in the soil without getting spoiled throughout the year. The fifth point is that weeds compete with crops. I've said that earlier on. They compete with our crops for space, for nutrients, for water, and sunlight. All these factors here are what our crops need to germinate and to grow very well. But when you have weeds growing with your crops, that means space, soil nutrients, water, and sunlight that should be made available to your original plants will be competed for. Effect of weeds on crops and livestock. Somebody asked, which subject is this? Are you supposed to be in this class? Olayemi Lateef. Now, effects of weeds on crops and livestock. When we talk about effect, they are not only the bad aspects of weeds on crops. It can also mean the good aspect of it and the bad or harmful aspect of it. So we have two classes of effects of weeds. The first here is harmful effects. What are the damages or what are the havoc they wreak on our crops? The first one is they reduce the quantity of crops. When you have weeds competing for space, competing for sunlight, for soil nutrients with your crops, the number of crops you will harvest at the end of your period will be reduced because weeds have taken over the farm. So they reduce the quantity of crops or they reduce the yield at the end of harvest. Two, they increase the cost of production. No farmer will be happy to see wheat on his or her farm. Once they sight wheat there, they begin to think of measures to take so as to control such wheat. And by so doing, you spend more money. Your cost of producing your crops will increase because you want to eradicate the weeds or you want to reduce the number of weeds. You buy you buy herbicides, which are chemicals that are used to control or reduce weeds on your farm. Therefore, you are increasing your cost of production. You are spending more to produce crops on your farm. Number three, weed can cause injury to man and livestock. Some of them have this itchy effect on a man or and even livestock. There's a particular weed that is called the devil beans. The seed, once the seed gets to the body of man or even livestock, they have this itchy effect. Four, they reduce the quality of crops. Since wheat they compete with our crops for sunlight, they compete with our crops for soil nutrients, the quality of our crops will be reduced because the soil nutrients, for example, in your soil might not be enough for the wheat and the original crops. And because wheat are fast growing plants, they take more before your crops. Thereby, they reduce the quality of crops the farmer will harvest at the end of the season. Number five is that weeds, they are host to insect pests. And insect pests generally, they cause the greatest havoc to crops on the farm. They eat the leaves of crops, thereby reducing the photosynthetic surface area of leaves. And photosynthesis is the process whereby green plants manufacture their food. So if the leaves of your crops have been eaten up by insect pests, that means photosynthesis will not take place and such plants or such crops will become stunted. It will not grow very well. So weeds can harbor insect pests, and insects are small in size, so they can hide under weeds and cause havoc to our crops. So also diseases, have different classes of diseases of farm animals. Some are viral, some are fungal diseases, bacterial diseases. Weed can also serve as host to diseases which affect crop production. Beneficial effect. We still have good that we can gain or we can get from. Can some animal eat weed? Yes, Lekan Ade. Can some animals eat weed? Yes, some animals can eat wheat, but not all wheats are good for consumption of animal. Some wheat are poisonous, and there's this instinct in animals. Once they get close to the wheat, they perceive it. They know the ones to eat and the ones to avoid. Some wheat can be dangerous or can be poisonous to farm animals. So not all wheat can be eaten by farm animals. Animals, especially the ruminant animals, they feed on grasses, so they can eat wheat. Especially ruminant animals, ruminant animals, animals eat on grasses. feed on grasses. Now, what are the good or the beneficial effects of weeds? Weeds, when they grow on the farm, they help to control soil erosion. And the erosion is the washing away of the topsoil, either by soil water or by wind. When you have your farm covered with weeds, they reduce the rate of soil erosion, either through wind or by water. Number two, some of these weeds are leguminous in nature. Examples are Centrosema pubescens, we have the Mucuna utilis, we have the Phaceolioid mucinoids, we have Stylosanthus gracilis. These are leguminous weeds, and they are called leguminous weeds because they provide or they supply protein to farm animals or into the soil when the leaves become dried and rotting. Okay, Farida Idris, I will do that. So when you have leguminous weeds on the farm, by the time they become dry, the leaves fall off and they become dry and rotting and mix with the soil, they add organic matter to the soil in form of green manure. We have three classes of organic matter. The first one is the green manure that we get from plant leaves. Then we have the farmyard manure that we get from droppings of farm animals, that is their waste. Then we also have the compost manure, which is the combination of green manure and the farmyard manure. Then number three beneficial effects of weeds to crop or to the farmer is that some weeds are used to feed livestock. So this takes us back to the question asked by one of you, that can animal feed on weeds? Some weeds are actually being given as feed to livestock. Like I said earlier on, not all the grasses or not all the weeds can be eaten by farm animals. Some of them are poisonous. So as a farmer, you will know the type of grasses to give to your farm, to your livestock. And then naturally, these animals, when they get close to grasses or weeds, they know the ones to eat and the ones not to feed on. So, examples of weeds. Weeds are numerous. There are so many. But I have few ones that I've brought to the class today. And beside, you have the botanical names. The first one here is goatweed. That's the common name or the English name, goatweed. And the botanical name is Agerantum cornicoides. If you look at the botanical name, the way I wrote them, you see that the first word there the first word starts with capital letter. Then the second word, you start with small letter. That's how to write botanical name in biology and agric science. Then number two is called broomweed. The botanical name is Cedar acuta. Number three, elephant weed. The botanical name is called Penicetum purpureum. Number four, guinea grass. Botanical name is Panicum maximum. Number five, spear grass. The botanical name is called Impyrenta cylindrica. Impyrenta cylindrica. Number six, carpet grass. This is called carpet grass because it spreads all over the soil surface. It does not stand erect. It covers the soil surface. The botanical name is called Azonopus compressus. Number seven, water leaf. This is beneficial to both livestock and man. Water leaf is a vegetable that we eat. They call it, Yoruba call it gure. We have it growing over the soil surface once it is rainy season. The botanical name is Talinum triangulare. This is a picture of a weed growing. Yes. So number eight, still on the examples of common weeds, we have gamba grass, Andropogon gaianus. Gamba grass, Andropogon gaianus. From number 1 to 8 are examples of weed in form of grasses. Then 9 to 12 are leguminous weeds. Weeds in form of grasses, that is number 1 to 8, they provide basically carbohydrate to farm animals if you feed them to your farm animals. But 9 10, 11, and 12, they provide protein. So as a livestock farmer, if you want to feed forages to your plants, you have to mix them up. It shouldn't be only grasses all the time. Mix your grasses with some of these leguminous weeds so that your farm animals or your livestock can get balanced diet. Then the first example of leguminous wheat is mucuna. That's the common name or the English name, while the botanical name is called Mucuna utilis. The second one is tilo. Botanical name is Tilosanthus gracilis. Number 3, which is 11 here, Pureria. The botanical name is Pureria fascioloides. And the last example, Centro, which is called Centrosema pubescens. Number 9, 10, 11, and 12 are referred to as leguminous weeds. They provide protein to farm animals when being fed with them. Their examples 1 to 8 are called grasses or weed in form of grasses. They provide carbohydrates to farm animals. If you want to feed these with your farm animals, you have to combine them. You shouldn't feed grasses alone to them. Mix them up with legumes so as to provide balanced diet to the animals. Is this an example of guinea grass? Here, picture of guinea grass. This is Crotalaria. Though I didn't write the name, it's also a weed. We find it virtually everywhere at the beginning of rain. Uses of wheat. Can we make use of wheat? Yes. Are they important to farmers? Yes. The first one is that some weeds are used as cover crops. Example is carpet wheat or carpet grass. Because carpet grass does not stand erect when they grow, they spread, they crawl on the soil surface, so they can cover your soil. And cover crops, they have 2 or 3 importance. One, cover crop will reduce soil erosion. Cover crops, because the plants are covering your soil, they reduce the rate of evaporation. What do we mean by evaporation? Evaporation is the loss of soil water to the atmosphere. When the sunlight is high or heat is much, you see that the rate at which soil loses water to the atmosphere will be very, very high. But when you have your soil covered with crops, called cover crops, the rate at which water will be lost will be minimal or will be reduced. So some weeds are used as cover crops, and the examples are carpet grass, mucuna, Stylosanthus gracilis. Number two is they are used as mulching and compost materials. Mulching is a method or a process of covering your soil surface with plant materials. It's almost the same thing as using them as cover crops to reduce erosion. For mulching, you make use of dry grasses. Please take note, dry grasses, maybe leaves, the shrubs, you spread them on your soil surface. When you do that, you also reduce loss of water to the atmosphere, and by the time they become rotting, they decompose and mix with the soil, they turn to compost material, which add organic matter to the soil, thereby increasing the soil fertility. Number 3, some weeds are medicinal in nature, e.g. lemongrass. We have what Yoruba people call agbo, herbs. Lemongrass is very, very good in the treatment of malaria, and there are some other weeds also that are medicinal in nature. Then the fourth point is some weeds are used to prepare hay and silage to feed livestock. Hay are succulent, they are the top parts of plants that are cut and sun-dry to feed farm animals. While silage are the topmost part of plants that are harvested first, then after you've harvested them, you cut them into smaller pieces, then you sun-dry them.
4 minutes, yeah.
Then you harvest those plants, you cut off the top succulent part of the plant, you sun-dry to feed farm animals during dry season. So hay and silage, they are the preserved form of forages. Forages are feeds they are grasses or plant materials that are used to feed farm animals. So they are the preserved form of forages that are used to feed livestock during dry season. Okay, somebody say I have a question for a plant to plant. I don't get you. Abdurrahman Shehu, can you please retype your question? Okay. For your homework, against next class, I want you to list 5 methods of controlling weeds. How can we control weeds on our farm? We can't fold our hands and allow weeds to take over the farm. We have to control them. So I want you to list out 5 methods by which farmers can control weeds on their farm. Please, can you go over? All right. Now, I have a question for a plant to planted. Abdurrahman Shehu, I didn't get your second question. Can you please retype? Abdul. No. Ah,
I think
can you go over the slide again? All right. Okay. Weeds, this is the first slide. Definition of weeds. That is, they are called plants growing where they are not wanted or they are unwanted plants. After that, you have characteristics of weeds. They can withstand trampling by man and animals. Some of them grow at a very fast rate. Then the seeds are very, very difficult to eradicate, to uproot from the soil. Then they also have the ability to remain in the ground throughout the whole year. The last characteristic is that they compete with our crops for space, for sunlight, for soil nutrients. Effects, they are in 2 classes, the harmful effect and the beneficial effect. Harmful effect, they reduce the quantity of crops, they reduce the quality as well. They make crops to look unhealthy, unattractive in the market after being harvested. Then some of them cause injury to man and to livestock. Then the last point is that they serve as host, that is, they harbor insect pests and diseases. Beneficial effects, how good are they to us? They help us to control erosion. They add organic matter to the soil in form of green manure. Then some of them can be used to feed farm animals. I gave you examples of weeds: goat weed, elephant weed, guinea grass, spear grass, water leaf, capel grass with a botanical name, then gamba grass, mucuna, stylosanthus, spiraea, and centrosema. So these are some of the pictures of weeds. This is guinea grass, this is crotalaria. Uses of weeds: they are used as cover crops, they are used as mulching and compost materials. Some of them are medicinal, e.g. lemongrass, to treat malaria. Then the last point is some of them are used to prepare hay and silage to feed farm animals. So I think my time is up. If you have a maize farm, for some, okay, if you have a maize farm, for some. What I mean is, if you plant yam in your farm and accidentally you see maize plant growing there, that maize plant, though maize is useful, maize is food, but for you not to have planted maize and you find it growing in your farm, it is referred to as weed because you did not plant it. So, any other question? What do you want? What? Wait. You want to stop it? Okay, you want to end it? Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm done. Stop video, end meeting.